Visionaire, Episode 6. In last week's episode, Mathius and his men met head-on with soldiers of the capital, ending with Mathius captured and taken straight to Prime Minister Kleo for interrogation. Meanwhile, Erion, Trinity, Blaze, and Milo reached the infamous Lady Jane and took off towards their destination before the Prime Minister and her soldiers could stop them. Unknown to the rest of the crew, however, Erion had picked up something extra along the way. Trinity, Erion, and Blaze sit strapped into their seats along the sides of the main lobby of the Lady Jane, while Milo sets the course in the ship's cockpit. Trinity and Erion's eyes are wide as they strain their necks to peer through the porthole windows at the thousands of stars surrounding them. Blaze, however, sits clutching his chair, his eyes squeezed shut.
Everything is fine. You are not trapped. There's plenty of air. You have all the room in the world. Everything is fine, just fine. Deep breaths in and out.
Wow. Can you believe it? There's just nothing. Miles and miles of nothing.
You're fine. You can breathe. You aren't alone.
I never thought I'd be all the way out here. It's like we're the only things moving in the universe.
You are not alone. There's plenty of air.
Are we actually moving? I mean, it sort of feels like it, but it seems like we're just floating around. Nothing.
Will you both stop it, please?
Trinity and Erion snap away from the windows and stare at Blaze, startled to see him almost dripping in a nervous sweat. The two look at each other, unsure.
Are you okay? You're all sweaty again.
Am I? Am I all sweaty again, Erion? Thanks. I had no idea.
Erion moves to speak again, but Trinity cuts her off with a quick shake of her head. The door slides open and Milo walks over, a huge grin pinned on her face.
Well, that was quite the adventure. Off to a bit of a bumpy start, but we're coasting now. You all right there, Chief?
I think he's a little sick.
I can hear you.
Milo goes to a small cupboard near the galley and presses her palm down on the surface. The top pops open and she pulls a tall aluminum canister from inside. She cracks it open as she walks back to Blaze, squatting down in front of his seat. Sensing her there, he pries his eyes open a bit.
Drink some water. Take deep breaths. We have 3 months of O2 storage aside from what is already hooked up to the ventilation system. The CO2 filters were just swapped out, and I'm pretty sure there are 4 extras next to the backup generator.
Milo puts a hand on Blaze's shoulder as he takes a long drink from the container. Once he puts it down, he lets out a slow, unsteady breath.
Okay.
We're okay.
Milo gets up and moves back to the cupboard, fetching more waters, as Blaze unfastens himself from his seat. Hesitantly, Erion and Trinity follow suit.
How much further do we have to go, Milo?
I don't know just yet. I'd say a week minimum, depending on the health of the thrusters. I know they've made the jump to light speed, but I'm not sure how long ago that was. I also need some more exact calculations for our end destination. Would you mind taking another look at Cult Kid's map and see if you can't figure out something a little more specific?
Can do, Captain.
In the Capitol interrogation room, as our 4 friends get settled in the Lady Jane, the tension grows inside the Capitol, where Prime Minister Kleo sits across a long metal table from a heavily shackled Mathius. His wounds cleaned and his robes exchanged for sterile black scrubs, he lets his eyes focus at the corner of the table, avoiding the Prime Minister's gaze.
Mr. Patterson, we can do this the easy way, or we can find other ways to get what we need. I know you and my predecessor had quite the history. You may be surprised to know I am no stranger to your time served here.
Mathius does not move, staring still at the table.
I must commend you. Your work established much of the structure of what we have here today. Dare I say, Vita Nova wouldn't have lasted more than a decade without some of your innovations. Clean air, water filtration, and Don't think we forgot about the meteor surveillance system. You laugh.
You think I don't know what you turned that into? A system created to keep humanity alive among the stars, recreated and twisted to spy on those it was meant to protect.
It is strange that you take such offense to that, when you were the entire reason for its necessity in the first place.
Mathius turns his head up to the ceiling, leaning back against his chair in a stubborn pout. The Prime Minister leans forward.
You couldn't have really believed Prime Minister Sourly would let you abandon your post without any recourse.
No recourse? I was hunted down as if I were a criminal of the state.
Which you were. Let us not play games, Mr. Patterson. I know what you were studying just before your unceremonious departure. You held sensitive information, and we could not risk its release.
If we aren't playing games, it should go both ways. I know the capital solution for dealing with dissent, eternal servitude, or the morgue. I have kept with my end of the bargain from Sowery's demands. I have said naught to anyone.
But Mr. Patterson, don't pretend as if you were wholly compliant. You claim to have left alone, fled by ship, and created a new home and life for yourself. Sourly may have believed you, but then again, I don't believe he ever looked hard and long at that daughter of yours.
Mathias's eyes shoot to the Prime Minister, wide and alarmed.
Daughter, what could you... I don't know what you could be talking about. Possible.
Prime Minister Kleo stands up, walking to the wall just behind Mathius and pressing her hand against a smooth black plate. It blinks red as a small monitor rises from the center of the table. Mathius watches, transfixed, as the monitor screen flicks on, showing the image of Erion, Blaze, Trinity, and Milo walking through the halls of the Capitol. Prime Minister Kleo leans over Mathias's shoulder, moving her hand in the air to speed up the lapse of time.
Remarkable, isn't it? How our children carry our characteristics. She has your hair and, dare I say, your signature saunter. However, what really strikes me about her is...
Prime Minister Kleo swipes her thumb in the air, switching the camera view to the room of safes, then holds up her hand to freeze the frame as Erion walks in. Mathius gasps as the Prime Minister zooms in on Erion's face.
She's got her mother's eyes.
Inside the Lady Jane, an hour later. While Prime Minister Kleo resumes her seat, Blaze, Erion, and Trinity pore over the ratty pillowcase map from Erion's bag. Blaze's suitcase lays open, several instruments spread out on the long coffee table bolted to the floor in the center of the Lady Jane's lounge.
Please, just bear with me on this. I'm just having a little trouble wrapping my head around that.
How do you...
Means he doesn't understand.
What's not to understand? The voice said once we enter Andromeda, we'll pass by 3 planets of increasing size, and then find our destination on the belt of the one after. It said it will be glowing green.
That is the farthest advice from anything helpful.
How so?
Well, how exactly do we know we are entering from the same place on the map as this voice thinks we're going to? Say we drop out of light speed on the complete opposite side of the map. Then what are our directions? How many planets then? For that matter, planets tend to be pretty freaking far apart. And landing on the belt of a planet could mean...
The voice will tell us if we're off mark.
Oh, great. The voice will tell us. Makes me feel a whole lot better.
Good.
He's being sarcastic again.
Will you stop doing that, please? It's very unhelpful.
I hate to agree with Blaze, but Erion, this is making me kind of nervous too. I mean, how do you know the voice will tell us that?
Because it told me before we got to the ship.
Wait, what?
You had another vision? When?
When we were walking through the Capitol. I don't remember a lot of it. It was different this time. Kind of like I wasn't there anymore.
And you disappeared?
Erion nods, ashamed of herself, and looks down at her feet. Trinity and Blaze look at each other, unsure, and turn their attention away from the map.
Do you remember exactly what the voice told you?
It said not to be afraid, that our path was clear and we would reach salvation soon.
Reach salvation? Sounds ominous.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Erion's eyes suddenly look up, a small gasp escaping from her throat as she makes a dash to her bag on the other side of the room. Startled, Blaze and Trinity freeze a moment before following her. Erion reaches her hand into her bag and pulls out 2 small black orbs. Blaze's eyebrows raise.
This! The voice wanted me to get these before we left. I don't know why.
What are those?
Data vaults, for sure.
Blaze takes one from Erion and examines it.
Really, really nice ones. This couldn't have been just laying out anywhere.
Trinity, Blaze, and Erion look at each other, uneasy, then stare back down at the orb in Blaze's hand. Meanwhile, in the cockpit, Milo sits in the expansive black captain's chair with a small tablet on her lap, glancing down at the log on the screen and syncing it to the numbers across the dashboard before her. She scrolls, stopping on a large blank area before doing a quick scan of the dials. She sees what she is looking for and hops up off to read the meter. Out of the corner of her eye, she notices a small blinking red light on the far end of the dashboard beside a small speaker and headset. Glancing behind her, she puts the headset on and taps the button. It stops blinking, and the sound of static fills her ears for a moment before a familiar voice cuts through.
Corporal, this is Prime Minister Kleo. We have a data breach that requires your immediate attention. Return my transmission for further instructions as soon as you are clear.
Milo slowly removes the headset from her ears and returns it to the clip, taking a careful scan of the room behind her. She walks back to the captain's chair, abandoning the log on the tablet and moving her fingers with practiced precision. After a moment, the screen shifts and the image of Lieutenant Holden appears before her.
Lieutenant, this is Corporal Nelson reporting in.
Corporal, thank you for returning transmission. The Prime Minister is currently occupied, but wished me to relay a message to you urgently.
In the lobby of the ship, Blaze, Erion, and Trinity stand in awe. The orb sits in the center of the room, broken open with the holograms dancing above it. The hologram shows what appears to be a ship. Surrounding it are diagrams and arrows, some showing complex mathematical equations, others letters in a language that they could not understand. Blaze motions to turn the ship from side to side, looking for anything they can use to decipher what they are seeing.
I've never seen anything like this before.
What makes it so different?
These functions, this can't... I mean, I don't understand how this could even run. Certainly not off any fuel or energy I've encountered.
It looks familiar, though. I feel like I've seen this before.
You've seen this before? Where?
Almost certain.
Trinity steps closer, squinting around the sides of the ship before waving her hand before the image with uncertainty. The image before them spins rapidly before flipping around to multiple images, the light glowing from gigantic frames to tiny particles in quick succession. Blaze and Erion take a step back.
Whoa, they're easy! You have to finesse it!
Blaze steps forward and holds out his hand, freezing the hologram in place. The three gasp at the image before them.
No, it can't be.
Trinity walks forward as the door slides open, Milo walking in to see a holographic image of herself hovering above the orb as the three turn their eyes on her. To be continued.